Humanity had always lived on a planet that demanded toughness. From the very beginning, life on Earth was not easy. The planet was harsh and unforgiving, with climates that could kill, predators that could hunt, and natural disasters that could wipe out entire communities in a single instant. From childhood, humans had to learn how to survive against all odds. Unlike many other species in the galaxy, which had evolved in calm, safe environments, humans grew up learning to adapt, fight, and overcome. This made them resilient in ways that no other civilization could easily understand. While other species focused on comfort and intellectual development, humans developed strength, cunning, and creativity in the face of danger. It was a difficult life, but it forged a species capable of things that many in the galaxy considered impossible. Humans were often underestimated. When aliens looked toward Earth, many saw only a small blue planet filled with primitive beings struggling to survive. They did not realize that beneath the surface, humans were something extraordinary. Stories of human resilience and survival were often ignored or dismissed as exaggerations, but the truth was that humans had survived everything the universe could throw at them. Natural disasters, disease, famine, and war were all part of their history, and each challenge had made them stronger, smarter, and more resourceful. Other species might crumble under pressure or panic in dangerous situations, but humans had learned to face adversity head. They were not only survivors, they were fighters, thinkers, and innovators in equal measure. Over the centuries, humans explored space slowly at first, but they did so with determination and courage that others found reckless. While many alien species relied on safety, technology, and careful planning, humans took risks that seemed foolish but often paid off in ways that astonished everyone. A human fleet could endure situations that would destroy alien ships. Human soldiers could survive environments that were instantly lethal to other beings. Even in peaceful times, humans trained, honed skills, and tested themselves against the limits of possibility. This was not arrogance, it was necessity. Life on Earth had taught them that only those who adapted quickly and acted decisively could survive, and this mindset extended naturally to the stars. Despite their achievements, humans remained underestimated. Many civilizations thought of them as violent, unpredictable, or primitive, unable to handle the complexity of interstellar politics or warfare. They did not understand that humans thrived on unpredictability. Where other species relied on order, humans used flexibility, cunning, and instinct. They were masters of improvisation, able to turn even a desperate situation into an advantage. This made humans dangerous allies and terrifying enemies. Even those who tried to study humanity found it difficult to predict their behavior, because humans did not follow the rules the rest of the galaxy expected. They were wild, yes, but wildness came with intelligence, creativity, and a deeply ingrained survival instinct. The SOS signal from the distant alien species changed everything. The Elythrians were intelligent, peaceful, and technologically advanced, but they were under attack by a brutal warlord species far stronger than themselves. Their distress signal traveled across light years, reaching the interstellar councils and alerting many civilizations. Some debated sending aid, some ignored it, and some dismissed it as hopeless. But when the humans received the signal, they did not hesitate. Unlike many other species that assessed risk first, humans recognized the opportunity and the responsibility. They saw a civilization in desperate need and decided to act, knowing that their skills, endurance, and ruthlessness could make a difference where others could not. The preparation for the mission was extraordinary. Unlike most species that relied solely on technology, humans relied on the combination of skill, instinct, and sheer daring. Human fleets were built not only for offense but also for adaptability. Ships could survive extreme conditions, crews were trained to think under pressure, and every mission was planned with both strategy and improvisation in mind. Leaders of the human fleet knew that they could not fully predict what they would face, so they prepared their people to respond to every possible scenario. Humans had learned through history that rigid planning could fail when confronted with chaos. Adaptability was their greatest strength, and every member of the fleet embodied that principle. The human fleet also carried a reputation that few other species truly understood. Those who had encountered humans before often told stories of unbelievable survival and brutal effectiveness. While other civilizations relied on treaties, negotiations, and diplomacy, humans relied on determination and action. The SOS mission represented not just a chance to help others but also a test of human ability on a galactic scale. The Elythrians did not yet know what humans were capable of. Even the Galactic Council, composed of the most experienced species in warfare and diplomacy, had doubts. But humans were ready to prove that their Deathworlder survival-hardened nature of Earthlings made them uniquely suited to this challenge. There was also a deeper motivation beyond helping the Elythrians. Humans had a history of understanding struggle because they themselves had struggled. Empathy for other species in peril was coupled with a strategic instinct. Aiding a civilization in crisis could form alliances, create opportunities, and extend human influence across the galaxy. But even without these benefits, humans would have acted. Their culture, forged in adversity, prioritized courage, action, and responsibility. When an SOS signal arrived, hesitation was not an option. They knew that waiting or delegating to others could mean the destruction of an entire species. Humans had learned early in their history that inaction often had consequences far worse than risk. That as humans prepared to respond, the universe watched with curiosity and skepticism. The story of Earth's inhabitants, the so-called Deathworlders, was beginning to spread beyond their own sector. Rumors circulated of their brutal survival instincts, their adaptability, and their unmatched tenacity. Stories of humans surviving situations that would kill others, of turning disadvantage into advantage, of finding solutions where none seemed possible, all fueled the galaxy's fascination and fear. Humans did not seek attention, but their reputation was growing regardless. This mission, the SOS response, was destined to either cement their legend or expose them to new risks. But the humans themselves were undeterred. They had faced harsh conditions, unpredictable enemies, and impossible odds beforehand. They thrived. The SOS mission became a symbol of humanity's identity, relentless, daring, and unafraid of danger. From the first signal to the final preparations, every human involved understood the stakes, and yet none hesitated. Humans had always been defined by their ability to confront chaos and survive. And now they were about to extend that legacy into interstellar space. They were not perfect, they were not invincible, but they were uniquely human. Every skill honed on the death world of Earth would be tested, and the universe would soon see that underestimating humans was a grave mistake in this first phase. Humans were not just responding to an SOS, they were showcasing the culmination of centuries of evolution, struggle, and survival. They carried with them the hard lessons of Earth, the ingenuity born from necessity, and the courage to face overwhelming odds. This was humanity stepping onto the galactic stage not as fragile primitives, but as Deathworlders capable of feats that others could barely imagine. The story of this mission, starting with the simple act of answering a distant cry for help, marked the beginning of a chapter that would redefine humanity's place in the galaxy forever. When the humans received the SOS signal, they knew the situation was more serious than anyone could have imagined. The alien species sending the distress call, the Elythrians were facing complete destruction. Their home worlds had already been partially devastated by a ruthless enemy, a warlord species whose numbers and firepower seemed impossible to counter. Entire cities were burning, fleets were disappearing, and the Elythrian people were desperate. The humans, having intercepted the call, immediately realized that this was not a situation for diplomacy or negotiation. It required action, and swift action at that. The scale of the challenge was staggering, but humans were not the kind of species that could be intimidated by numbers or odds. The first step was understanding the enemy. The warlords were brutal, efficient, and strategic, far beyond the reach of most civilizations. They had conquered and destroyed countless worlds before, leaving nothing but ruin behind them. They were organized, technologically advanced in weaponry, and relentless in their pursuit of domination. While other species might panic at such a description, humans approached the information with careful analysis. They studied the warlords' tactics, their strengths, their weaknesses, and even their culture. Human strategists realized that despite the warlords' power, they had predictable patterns, vulnerabilities, and blind spots, qualities that could be exploited with the right combination of daring and ingenuity. Mobilizing the human fleet was another massive challenge. Earth's fleets were vast but scattered, composed of ships that had never all been deployed together. Each ship had specialized roles: assault vessels for direct combat, reconnaissance craft for intelligence gathering, support ships for repairs and logistics, and command ships to coordinate strategy. Bringing these ships together required extraordinary coordination. Communications had to be seamless, commands precise, and every crew member ready for immediate action. For humans, this was not just a logistical challenge, it was a test of their ability to operate as a unified force under pressure. Years of training in hostile environments, combined with centuries of military experience, prepared them for such a moment. But the margin for error was slim. Humans also faced the challenge of coordinating with the Elythrians themselves. The alien species was intelligent, technologically advanced, and highly cultured, but it had never encountered humans before. Many Elythrians had heard myths or stories about humans, often exaggerating their abilities, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of a fleet of Deathworlders entering their space. Communication and trust had to be established quickly, that humans could not afford misunderstandings or delays. They approached the Elythrians with a combination of respect and quiet authority, making it clear that they were there to help but also that they operated on their own terms. For the Elythrians, it was both uninspiring and terrifying to see the humans in action. One of the greatest challenges was distance. The SOS signal had come from a region of space far beyond the normal patrol routes of Earth's fleets. Traveling there required navigation through uncharted territories, dealing with cosmic hazards such as asteroid fields, radiation storms, and gravitational anomalies. Human engineers and pilots worked tirelessly to ensure the fleet could safely reach the Elythrian systems. Every journey, no matter how well planned, carried risks. Ships could fail, crews could be lost, and the mission could be jeopardized before it even began. Yet, humans were used to navigating dangerous and unpredictable environments. Their history of surviving the harsh conditions of Earth had taught them to expect the unexpected and adapt quickly when things went wrong. Beyond navigation and logistics, there was the question of strategy. The humans knew that rushing into battle without careful planning would be disastrous. The warlords were not just strong, they were cunning. They would expect humans to attack directly, to use conventional tactics. But humans were not conventional. They had learned through centuries of survival that brute force alone was rarely enough. Success required creativity, improvisation, and the ability to turn an enemy's strengths against them. Human commanders spent hours analyzing the warlord formations, studying their previous campaigns, and simulating countless battle scenarios. Every detail mattered: the timing of strikes, the positioning of fleets, and even the psychological impact of their actions on both the enemy and the Elythrians. The humans also had to prepare their crews for the psychological strain of the mission. Unlike many species, humans had a unique combination of fearlessness and recklessness, but even the hardiest warriors could face doubts and stress when confronted with the scale of this challenge. Training simulations were intense, designed to push crews to their limits, forcing them to think clearly under pressure, make rapid decisions, and cooperate seamlessly. Every human knew that mistakes could be fatal not just for themselves, but for the Elythrians and the mission as a whole. There was no room for hesitation, no margin for error. Yet this pressure also brought out the best in humans. Crisis revealed their ingenuity, courage, and determination. As the fleet prepared to leave, humans reflected on the stakes. Failure would not just be a military setback, it would be catastrophic for an entire species. The Elythrians were counting on them, and the warlord threat was capable of spreading further if left unchecked. The mission was daunting, but humans saw opportunity in the challenge. They thrived where others might have faltered. Their strength came not just from technology or numbers, but from their resilience, adaptability, and unyielding will to survive. These qualities, honed over millennia on the death world of Earth, were precisely what made humans uniquely qualified to confront an enemy that others feared. Even with all this preparation, the humans faced uncertainty. They had limited intelligence on the enemy, unknown variables in the environment, and no guarantee that the Elythrians would respond as expected. Every decision carried enormous consequences. But humans were trained to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. They had evolved on a planet where survival depended on quick thinking, adaptability, and daring. These instincts translated naturally into interstellar warfare. The humans approached the challenge not with panic, but with calculated confidence, ready to respond to whatever obstacles arose. One of the most critical aspects of the rising challenge was timing. The warlords were advancing quickly, destroying entire worlds in days. The human fleet had to reach the Elythrians before their civilization collapsed entirely. Every hour of delay increased the risk of failure. Human planners calculated trajectories, jump points, and supply lines with incredible precision. They also prepared contingency plans, accounting for mechanical failures, unexpected ambushes, and environmental hazards. Flexibility was key. Humans understood that the universe rarely followed predictable patterns, and success depended on their ability to adjust in real time. Another challenge was the scale of coordination required. The fleet included thousands of personnel, dozens of ship classes, and countless systems that needed to operate in perfect harmony. Communication across such a large formation was critical. Humans developed protocols that allowed them to maintain command and control even under extreme conditions. Crews were trained to anticipate each other's actions, reducing the need for constant instructions. This level of coordination was essential for survival, as a single misstep could compromise the mission or expose the fleet to deadly attacks. Amid all this, humans also had to maintain morale. Unlike most species, humans were capable of remarkable resilience, but prolonged stress and exposure to danger could erode even the strongest resolve. Leaders emphasized unity, purpose, and trust, reminding crews why they were taking on such a dangerous mission. Each human understood that their actions could mean the difference between survival and annihilation, not just for themselves, but for an entire alien civilization. This sense of responsibility strengthened their resolve, pushing them to perform beyond ordinary limits. Finally, the challenge was not just external, it was internal. Humans had to balance aggression with caution, strategy with improvisation, and determination with adaptability. Every decision carried weight, every maneuver had consequences, and every action would be remembered. The rising challenge was not just about defeating the enemy. It was about proving that humans could operate on a scale that no one else in the galaxy had expected. The combination of intelligence, courage, and resilience made them uniquely suited to the task. But it also meant that the margin for error was extraordinarily small. Humans faced not only the immediate threat to the Elythrians but also the broader implications of the mission. Success would cement their reputation as Deathworlders capable of extraordinary feats. Failure could have catastrophic consequences, not only for the Elythrians but for humanity standing in the galaxy. Every ship, every crew member, every decision was part of a larger puzzle that had to fit perfectly. Humans approached the rising challenge with focus, determination, and the confidence born of centuries of survival in a harsh world. They were ready for anything, and anything would come. From preparation to anticipation, humans embraced the rising challenge not as an obstacle but as a proving ground. The difficulty, the risk, the scale, and the stakes were immense, yet they thrived under pressure. They were Deathworlders hardened by adversity, capable of facing impossible odds and coming out stronger. The SOS signal had set in motion a test of endurance, strategy, and courage unlike anything in the galaxy, and humans were ready to meet it head-on. As the human fleet entered Elythrian space, the tension among the crews was palpable. This was the moment when preparation met reality, and humans were about to see if their centuries of survival experience on Earth could translate into interstellar warfare on a scale no one had ever witnessed. The Elythrian system, once peaceful and thriving, was scarred by the warlord forces. Cities lay in ruins, communication networks were crippled, and the few Elythrians who remained were terrified, hiding in underground refuges or aboard damaged ships. The SOS signal had brought hope, but the humans quickly realized that hope alone would not be enough. The enemy was already expecting resistance, and they were ruthless, well-organized, and entirely without mercy. The first encounters were unlike anything the humans had anticipated. The warlords had deployed scouting fleets to detect any incoming reinforcements, and these units were fast, heavily armed, and designed to strike hard. Human pilots and tacticians, however, were ready. The Deathworlder instinct for survival combined with strategic brilliance allowed them to anticipate enemy maneuvers, setting traps and ambushes that turned the enemy's aggression into vulnerability. In several early skirmishes, humans lured enemy ships into asteroid fields and narrow gravitational corridors where superior numbers became a liability for the attackers. Ships that had been considered invincible were destroyed in moments, and the warlords began to realize that these humans did not fight like anyone they had ever seen. The critical moment arrived when the humans discovered the warlords' Central Command fleet positioned near a strategic star cluster. This was the heart of the enemy's operations in the sector. Destroying it would cripple the warlord forces, but it was heavily defended and almost impossible to reach through conventional attack strategies. Human commanders convened a council of war, analyzing the situation from every possible angle. They knew that a frontal assault would be suicidal. Their fleets could be annihilated before reaching the command vessels. Instead, they relied on ingenuity and improvisation, the very traits that had allowed humans to survive on the Deathworld for millennia. Humans divided their forces into multiple squads, each with a unique purpose. Reconnaissance teams moved ahead to scout enemy positions, while assault groups prepared diversionary attacks to draw attention away from the main strike force. Specialized crews worked on hacking the enemy's communication networks, disrupting coordination and causing confusion within the warlord ranks. Even the smallest human ships played critical roles, acting as bait, decoys, and rapid response units. Every human understood that the smallest action could have enormous consequences, and every decision had to be precise. This level of coordination was unprecedented. But humans thrived under pressure. The first major escalation came when a fleet of warlord ships ambushed one of the human reconnaissance units. The encounter was sudden, violent, and chaotic. Explosions lit up the void of space as missiles, energy beams, and projectile weapons collided. Humans responded not with panic, but with calculated precision. They used unconventional tactics, leveraging their knowledge of physics, maneuvering through debris fields, and exploiting enemy blind spots. The warlords, who expected a straightforward fight, found themselves disoriented. In moments, the reconnaissance unit turned the ambush into a trap, destroying several enemy ships and retreating without losses. This engagement set the tone for what the humans would accomplish in the days ahead. The Elythrians, watching from damaged vessels and hidden colonies, were both amazed and terrified. They had sent an SOS hoping for help, but they could not have imagined the scale and ferocity of human operations. While the humans fought, they also coordinated relief efforts, evacuating survivors and securing vital infrastructure to prevent further destruction. Every victory was immediate and decisive, but the human approach went beyond simple combat. They applied the same logic they had developed on Earth: adapt to the environment, exploit weaknesses, and strike decisively where the enemy least expected it. The warlords were powerful, but they were predictable in their overconfidence, and humans used this against them. The critical turning point occurred during the first major infiltration mission. A team of human commandos managed to slip past enemy sensors, boarding key warlord vessels. This was dangerous, high-stakes work. One mistake could mean instant death. However, the humans excelled at operating in extreme environments, improvising tools, tactics, and strategies to overcome technological barriers. They sabotaged weapon systems, disabled engines, and took control of critical command centers aboard the ships. The warlords, who had believed themselves invincible, were stunned to find their own systems turned against them. This operation did more than just weaken the enemy. It demonstrated the humans' ability to think, adapt, and act under pressure in ways that other species could not comprehend. Meanwhile, human fleet commanders were orchestrating multiple battles simultaneously. Using feints, misdirection, and coordinated strikes, they kept the enemy off balance. Warlord forces tried to regroup, sending reinforcements, but humans anticipated their moves. Every counterattack was met with a prepared response, turning the warlord's aggression into vulnerability. The human approach was not just physical, it was psychological. By showing ingenuity, ruthlessness, and fearlessness, humans instilled doubt in the enemy ranks. Fear and confusion spread faster than actual damage, undermining morale and effectiveness. One of the most remarkable aspects of this escalation was the humans' ability to operate independently yet cohesively. Each ship, squad, and unit could think and act on its own, but all actions were synchronized with the fleet's overall strategy. This level of decentralized command, combined with adaptability and instinct, gave humans an edge that no rigidly structured enemy could counter. Even when communication was disrupted, human crews improvised, maintaining effectiveness and continuing the mission. The warlords, used to strictly hierarchical commands, were thrown into chaos when their own forces could not respond effectively to unexpected tactics. The human fleet also exploited environmental conditions to their advantage. They used asteroid belts, nebulae, and gravitational anomalies to conceal movements and ambush the enemy. They predicted enemy movements, calculating trajectories that allowed them to strike precisely where it would cause maximum damage. Humans also innovated in the heat of battle, developing new strategies and tools on the fly. This adaptability was unlike anything the warlords had faced. Where other species relied on rigid rules and predictable responses, humans thrived on unpredictability. Amid all the chaos, the Elithrians began to trust the humans more fully. They provided intelligence, technical support, and logistical assistance, but they also deferred to the humans' judgment in combat. The humans treated them as partners, but it was clear that in terms of strategy, the Deathworlders were leading. This cooperation was vital. It allowed humans to act decisively, while Elithrians focused on preserving their population and supporting key infrastructure. By working together, they created a synergy that the warlords could not anticipate or counter. The escalation reached its peak during the final assault on the warlord's Central Command fleet. Humans launched a coordinated strike from multiple vectors, catching the enemy completely off guard. Diversionary units drew attention away from the main force, while the infiltration teams disabled key defenses from within. Human ships struck simultaneously, overwhelming the warlord fleet with a combination of tactical brilliance, firepower, and psychological pressure. What seemed impossible just days earlier was now unfolding. The humans were breaking the heart of the enemy operation in a way that no other species could have achieved. Even in the heat of this critical moment, humans demonstrated remarkable discipline. Every crew member understood their role, every maneuver was precise, and every decision considered both immediate effects and long-term consequences. The battle was not chaos, it was controlled, calculated, and executed with incredible skill. Humans had turned what could have been a hopeless situation into a decisive opportunity. The warlords, confident in their own power, found themselves outmatched in both strategy and adaptability. They could not predict the humans' ingenuity, and they were unprepared for the relentless efficiency of a Deathworlder. Fleet acting as one, the impact of this escalation was profound. Entire warlord formations were destroyed, critical command centers were neutralized, and the morale of the enemy forces collapsed. The humans had achieved what seemed impossible. They had turned the tide of the battle, not just through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and relentless determination. The Elithrians, witnessing the transformation from desperation to hope, began to understand the true nature of humans. These were not ordinary allies, they were beings capable of extraordinary feats, forged by millennia of survival on a harsh world, ready to face impossible odds without hesitation. The humans had proven themselves beyond doubt. The escalation was not just about combat, it was about demonstrating that humans could operate under pressure, adapt in real time, and turn overwhelming danger into a strategic advantage. Every ship, every pilot, every tactician had contributed to a result that no other species in the galaxy could have achieved. The critical moment had arrived, and humans had not only survived it, they had dominated it. The humans' actions sent a message across the stars. Do not underestimate the death. Where others saw fragility, humans had shown resilience. Where others saw chaos, humans had demonstrated control. Where others saw danger, humans had revealed opportunity. The escalation had tested them to their limits, but they had emerged stronger, more united, and fully capable of confronting the warlord threat. This was the moment that would define the mission, prove humanity's unique capabilities, and set the stage for the final resolution of the conflict. The culmination of the battle was approaching, and the human fleet, battle-worn yet unyielding, advanced toward the core of the warlord threat. After days of skirmishes, ambushes, and daring maneuvers, the The humans had reached a point where hesitation was no longer an option. The Elythrian systems were still in danger, and every delay gave the warlord forces a chance to regroup, repair, or strike back. Humans knew that their strength lay not just in their firepower, but in their decisiveness. They had to act quickly, striking with precision and strategy, to prevent further destruction and to finally end the threat once and for all. Every human aboard the fleet understood the gravity of the moment, and the entire operation became a race against time. The first stage of the resolution was strategic positioning. Human commanders orchestrated the fleet with meticulous care. They used the lessons learned from the earlier battles, the patterns of the enemy, the weaknesses in their formations, and the vulnerabilities in their technology. Ships moved into precise formations, taking advantage of natural features in the system, such as asteroid belts and energy fields, to conceal their approach. Decoy fleets were sent in one direction, drawing enemy attention, while the main force maneuvered into a perfect strike position. It was a combination of patience, timing, and sheer tactical genius. Humans had learned over centuries on their death world to study the environment, anticipate danger, and strike at the optimal moment, and now these instincts were being applied on an interstellar scale. The humans' approach was methodical but also adaptable. They were prepared for contingencies, ready to adjust tactics if the warlords tried to counter their moves. Reconnaissance teams continuously fed information back to the command ships, updating positions, enemy movements, and potential hazards. This intelligence allowed the humans to maintain complete situational awareness, a critical advantage in a battle where a single miscalculation could spell disaster. Unlike most species, humans were not reliant solely on technology. Their intuition, experience, and adaptability made them capable of rapid, creative responses. If a new threat emerged, humans could respond instantly, improvising tactics and using the environment to their advantage. The first major strike was calculated for maximum impact. Human assault teams targeted the enemy's energy supply and communication hubs. Without these, the warlord forces would be disorganized and weakened. Human ships moved like predators, striking with speed and precision. Missiles, energy beams, and advanced weaponry were deployed in rapid succession, creating overwhelming pressure on the enemy. The warlords, expecting either a straightforward attack or a prolonged engagement, were stunned by the humans' coordinated approach. Systems failed, command chains broke down, and confusion spread across their ranks. It was not chaos on the human side. It was controlled precision, a dance of destruction executed with skill honed by centuries of survival instincts. Simultaneously, human boarding parties continued their infiltration operations. Elite teams of soldiers, engineers, and tacticians moved aboard the warlord vessels, disabling weapons, hijacking command centers, and sabotaging engines. These teams were fearless, operating under conditions that would have been fatal for other species. They relied on ingenuity and adaptability, often creating improvised tools to bypass enemy security systems or to redirect energy flows. Their goal was not just destruction, it was complete neutralization of the enemy's ability to coordinate or retaliate. Each boarding operation was risky, but the humans had trained for such scenarios for decades. The Deathworlder instinct for survival, combined with creativity and courage, made them unstoppable as the battle unfolded. The warlords began to realize the full scope of the humans' capabilities. The conventional tactics that had worked against other species failed completely. Their formations, designed to intimidate and dominate, were systematically dismantled. Humans exploited every weakness, turning the enemy's strength into a liability. Ships that had once seemed invincible were destroyed or captured. Communication lines that had coordinated fleets fell silent. The warlords were not just losing ships, they were losing control over their forces, their strategy unraveling under the relentless pressure of the humans' attack amid the chaos. The Elythrians played a supporting role, assisting with repairs, logistics, and coordination. Though they had once been in complete despair, they were now inspired by the humans' skill and determination. Humans treated them as allies, coordinating efforts to evacuate civilians, protect vital infrastructure, and maintain essential systems. Every victory against the warlords was also a victory for the Elythrians, who could now see hope for the first time in weeks. The humans had not only brought military power, they had brought morale, courage, and the knowledge that victory was possible. The decisive moment came when the humans identified the Warlord Command flagship, the vessel from which all remaining operations were coordinated. This ship was heavily defended, surrounded by escort fleets, and armed with advanced weaponry. A direct assault would have been suicidal for any other species, but humans approached the situation differently. Using decoy fleets and diversionary attacks, they drew the escort ships away, creating a narrow window of opportunity. Simultaneously, boarding teams infiltrated the flagship, targeting control centers, navigation systems, and energy cores. The combination of external assault and internal sabotage created a situation that the warlords could not recover from. Their flagship was effectively neutralized, and with it, the ability to command the rest of their fleet disappeared. The human strike was swift and decisive. Within hours, the majority of the warlord forces were destroyed, captured, or rendered inoperative. Their central command had fallen, their strategies disrupted, and their morale shattered. Humans had achieved something that many in the galaxy thought impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had seemed invincible through sheer intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The resolution was not just military, it was a demonstration of the unique strengths of humans, forged by centuries of survival in extreme conditions. Where other species relied on numbers, technology, or rigid strategy, humans relied on a combination of skill, instinct, and ingenuity that was entirely unpredictable. Even after the flagship was neutralized, humans continued operations to secure the region. Remaining warlord forces were systematically pursued and dismantled. Human fleets moved with precision, ensuring that no enemy could regroup or pose a further threat. They repaired or neutralized damaged infrastructure to prevent further harm, stabilized critical systems, and began the process of assisting the Elythrians in rebuilding their worlds. Humans had not only defeated the enemy, they had ensured that victory would be lasting, leaving the Elythrians with the tools and security needed to recover and thrive. The aftermath of the final battles also revealed the psychological impact of human strategy. The warlords, once confident and ruthless, had been broken not just physically but mentally. Their defeat was total, leaving survivors bewildered and demoralized. Humans had proven that strength, intelligence, and adaptability combined could overcome even the most formidable enemies. The Elythrians, witnessing the humans in action, came to respect and fear their allies in equal measure. They had sent an SOS seeking help, but the humans had done more than just respond. They had demonstrated what it meant to be a death, capable of turning desperate situations into decisive victories. In the final phase of the resolution, humans focused on consolidation and support. They coordinated with Elythrian leaders to establish secure communication networks, rebuild key infrastructure, and protect populations still recovering from warlord attacks. Human engineers and tacticians shared knowledge and strategies, ensuring that the Elythrians could defend themselves in the future. The humans did not seek glory or recognition. They acted because it was necessary, and because it was what humans did. Their mission was complete not only when the enemy was defeated but when the Elythrians were safe, stable, and capable of rebuilding. The resolution also highlighted the human capacity for balance. They were ruthless in combat, precise and strategic in their attacks, yet compassionate and supportive toward allies. This duality, the ability to destroy with efficiency while simultaneously preserving life and stability, was a hallmark of humanity's approach. It reflected centuries of adaptation, survival, and understanding that strength alone was insufficient. Wisdom, cooperation, and strategic thinking were equally important. Humans had mastered the combination, and it allowed them to emerge from the most critical phase of the mission, victorious. By the time the human fleet prepared to leave Elythrian space, the warlord threat had been neutralized entirely. Systems once in chaos were now secure, survivors were safe, and the Elythrians could begin the long process of recovery. The humans had not only completed their mission, they had set a new standard for interstellar intervention. Their actions demonstrated that, even against overwhelming odds, intelligence, courage, and adaptability could achieve what others deemed impossible. The resolution of the conflict was complete, leaving a lasting impression on both allies and enemies. Through this decisive action, humans had proven something fundamental. Their Deathworlder heritage was not a liability, it was a unique strength. Their history of survival, ingenuity, and resilience allowed them to face challenges that would have destroyed other species. In resolving the warlord crisis, humans had combined all these traits, applying them with precision, creativity, and unyielding determination. The Elythrians had sent an SOS seeking aid. The humans had responded not only with power, but with skill, strategy, and humanity. The war was over, and the human fleet had completed its mission. But the effects of what had happened reached far beyond the immediate battlefield. Across Elythrian space, survivors emerged from hiding, exhausted, terrified, yet filled with hope they had not felt in weeks. Their cities were damaged, their fleets destroyed, and their people traumatized, but humanity's intervention had saved them from total annihilation. The humans, who had fought with precision, courage, and ingenuity, began to withdraw from Elythrian space, but the legacy of their actions remained. The Elythrians, who had once doubted the possibility of survival, now viewed humans as saviors, fearsome yet dependable allies. It was a moment that would change the way an entire civilization and, eventually, the galaxy understood humanity. Returning to Earth, the human crews did not celebrate with fanfare or parades. For them, the mission had been a duty, a test of skill and survival instincts honed over millennia. They were accustomed to extreme challenges, and although their victory was extraordinary, it was seen as a natural outcome of their training, strategy, and resilience. Every member of the fleet carried the weight of what they had done, the lives saved, the destruction inflicted, and the enormous responsibility of making choices that had consequences across the stars. Humans were not invincible, but they had proven their ability to act decisively when it mattered most. The reflection of their deeds, quiet yet profound, began to sink in as the fleet returned home. The Elythrians, for their part, were profoundly changed by the events. They had sent an SOS in desperation, expecting perhaps a token rescue or a minor intervention. Instead, they had received an overwhelming demonstration of human capability and determination. Entire fleets had been destroyed, critical infrastructure had been secured, and the warlord forces neutralized with precision and ruthlessness. For the Elythrians, humans were no longer just another species, they were legends. The survivors spoke of humans with awe, recounting stories of boarding parties that had infiltrated enemy ships, strike teams that had turned impossible situations into victories, and fleets that had maneuvered with a combination of speed, cunning, and creativity no other species could match. These stories spread quickly, becoming a cornerstone of the Elythrian collective memory. Back on Earth, analysts and military leaders examined the mission in detail. The scale of human achievement was staggering. Every maneuver, decision, and tactic had been executed with near-perfect precision. But what impressed even the most experienced observers was the humans' adaptability. The humans had not relied solely on technology or brute force, they had relied on creativity, intuition, and an ability to improvise under pressure. This combination had allowed them to achieve victories that other species would have thought impossible. Analysts compared human strategies with those of other species, noting how rigid tactics had failed where human flexibility had triumphed. The conclusion was clear. Humans were uniquely equipped to operate under extreme conditions, in both combat and survival scenarios, in ways that other civilizations could scarcely replicate. The reflection on human capability extended beyond military circles. Philosophers, scientists, and historians debated the implications of the mission. Humans had demonstrated that survival in extreme environments, coupled with intelligence and adaptability, could create a species capable of feats that transcended conventional expectations. The concept of the Deathworlder, of being shaped by constant struggle and danger, took on new meaning. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as fragile and unpredictable. Yet they had shown that their very history of hardship was a source of unmatched strength. This realization led to discussions across multiple fields, from ethics to sociology, as experts tried to understand how a species could turn adversity into such extraordinary capability. The mission also changed humanity's standing in the galaxy. Before the SOS, humans were often viewed with skepticism or mild interest by other species. Some considered them volatile, dangerous, or primitive. Now, following the decisive intervention in Elythrian space, perceptions shifted dramatically. Humans became respected and feared in equal measure. Across sectors, alien civilizations began to reassess humanity's role in interstellar affairs. Reports of the fleet's effectiveness, the ingenuity of its commanders, and the relentless courage of its crews traveled faster than the speed of diplomatic discourse. Where once humans had been underestimated, they were now recognized as a force to be reckoned with, a species capable of reshaping the balance of power when they chose to act. The Elythrians themselves began to forge a lasting bond with humanity. They had been saved from annihilation, and their survival was a direct result of human strategy, courage, and resilience. As they rebuilt their worlds, they incorporated human teachings and tactical insights into their own systems. The humans had shared not just victory but knowledge, ways to defend, to adapt, and to respond effectively to threats. This exchange created an alliance that promised to endure for generations. Humans, who had acted without expectation of reward, had nonetheless secured allies whose gratitude and loyalty would influence galactic politics and security for years to come. For the human participants, reflection was also deeply personal. The mission had tested every skill they possessed, pushed them to the limits of endurance, and forced them to confront the consequences of life and death decisions. They had witnessed destruction, chaos, and fear, but also courage, resilience, and hope. Many of them thought back to their training on Earth, the harsh landscapes, the survival exercises, the relentless challenges that had seemed punishing at the time. It became clear that everything they had endured had prepared them for this moment. They had used every lesson, every experience, and every instinct to ensure success. In this sense, the mission was both a culmination and a continuation of human history, a living proof that survival, adaptability, and determination could triumph over overwhelming odds. At the same time, humans reflected on the cost of their actions. While the warlord forces had been defeated, there had been casualties on all sides, and the destruction had been immense. Even the most ruthless enemy had been composed of sentient beings, and humans recognized the gravity of taking lives, even in the service of a greater good. Reflection on these realities tempered pride with humility. Humans understood that their strength and effectiveness came with responsibility. Their ability to act decisively in extreme situations was a gift, but it was also a duty, a moral obligation to use their capabilities wisely and ethically. The aftermath of the mission also sparked internal discussion within human society. Leaders and thinkers debated how such power and skill should be wielded in the future. Humans had proven that they could intervene decisively across the galaxy, but questions arose about when and how to act. Some argued that such capabilities should remain in reserve, used only when survival or the protection of allies was at stake. Others suggested that humanity could assume a leadership role in shaping galactic stability. using their skills to prevent conflicts before they escalated. These debates reflected the complex nature of human power extraordinary, but requiring wisdom, foresight, and careful consideration. As the Elythrians rebuilt, they integrated lessons learned from the human intervention into their culture, technology, and military systems. Human tactics, strategies, and methods of adaptability became part of Elythrian training programs. The humans had not only saved lives, they had reshaped an entire civilization, leaving a legacy that would endure for generations. The Elythrians' gratitude was profound, and their perception of humans was forever changed. Humanity was no longer seen as fragile or unpredictable. They were a species defined by resilience, intelligence, and courage, capable of acting decisively in the most dire circumstances beyond the immediate political and military consequences. The mission had a profound effect on human culture itself. Stories of the fleet's bravery, ingenuity, and effectiveness spread among humans, inspiring new generations to pursue excellence, resilience, and strategic thinking. The tale of the SOS mission became part of human lore, a demonstration of what could be achieved through courage, skill, and cooperation. Children learned about the mission as a story of hope and determination. Adults reflected on the tactical genius and bravery it required, and scholars analyzed the strategies used as examples of human adaptability in extreme conditions. It was a moment that would shape human identity for centuries to come. In reflecting on the mission, humans also considered their role in the broader galaxy. They had acted as both warriors and protectors, demonstrating that their strength could be used for the benefit of others. This dual capacity to destroy with efficiency and to protect with wisdom was unique among species. It became clear that humanity's history of survival on a harsh planet had given them a perspective few others could match. They understood danger, adversity, and responsibility in a way that allowed them to act decisively without being reckless, to protect without being passive, and to innovate without being constrained by convention. Finally, humans reflected on the lessons learned from the Elythrian mission. They recognized the importance of preparation, adaptability, and teamwork. They saw how courage, strategy, and intelligence could combine to achieve extraordinary outcomes. They understood that every mission carried moral and ethical implications, and that their unique abilities were both a gift and a responsibility. The aftermath was a period of contemplation, celebration, and planning for the future. Humans had proven themselves, not only to the Elythrians and the galaxy, but to themselves. Their place in the universe was no longer uncertain. They were capable of facing impossible odds and emerging victorious, leaving a legacy of skill, courage, and wisdom that would endure for generations. The Elythrians, now fully aware of what humans could achieve, pledged enduring alliance and cooperation. Humanity's intervention had not only saved lives, it had reshaped interstellar politics, altered perceptions of power, and established a new standard for what it meant to be a capable, adaptive, and responsible species. Humans had answered a call for help, faced an overwhelming threat, and emerged victorious, demonstrating that their combination of courage, ingenuity, and resilience could achieve what others deemed impossible. This mission, and the reflection upon it, would echo across the stars as a testament to the extraordinary potential of humanity.